Canada, a very credible organization, has said this about the housing affordability crisis. And I quote, "If we had historically equally considered the demand side and the supply side policies, we would probably be in a far better position." Mr. Speaker, I think I'm running out of time, but I would just summarize this part by saying, isn't that a fresh idea that we're going to look at basic economic principles? And that's where this government has failed. I'll continue after. Thank you.
Thank the member for his intervention. There'll be about 6.5 minutes left when he gets back after this. Now, the last couple of statements by members that we've done, they've been getting pretty noisy in the chamber, so I was hoping that people can keep their conversations outside in the lobbies and as they come in to listen to these great statements that members are doing. So, statement by member, Déclaration du député, the honourable member for Spadina, Fort York.
Mr. Speaker, a short time ago, it was Rare Disease Day. I want to bring scleroderma, also called systemic sclerosis, to the attention of this House. This rare autoimmune disease impacts over 40,000 Canadians. One of those people was Ngọc Bé Quỳnh. She was studying to become a doctor before war broke out in her country. She evaded communist soldiers, she fought off pirates, and she survived 2 years in a refugee camp before being welcomed to this country. Mr. Speaker, she was grateful to be here, but it wasn't easy. She didn't speak English or French, but her indomitable spirit was not going to let her fail. She learned English, she went to college, and she retrained as an electrical assembly worker, becoming the first in her factory to be the female line worker. Ngọc Bé Quỳnh was her name. Others knew her as Belinda Vong. I simply knew her as Mom. We don't know much about scleroderma. We know it predominantly affects women and that it relentlessly attacks the body. Life expectancy is 3 to 15 years. My mom lived with it for over 18. She passed away this morning after her courageous battle. To my mom, who raised me to stand in my truth, focus on doing right, and to help as many people as I can. Cảm ơn mẹ và con yêu mẹ. Thank you, Mom. I love you, Mom. And I'll miss you, Mom.
The honourable member for Scarborough North.
Mr. Speaker, today I am pleased to recognize Dennis Levesque, a proud veteran and community leader, on his well-deserved retirement. Dennis worked over the last 45 years to create meaningful change in our communities and country. After serving in the Canadian Armed Forces for 37 years as a senior officer, instructor, and helicopter pilot, he was awarded 2 command commendations and retired as a lieutenant colonel. Dennis then worked at St. Peter and Paul residence in my riding of Scarborough North, where he served as chief administrative officer for 8 years. St. Peter and Paul was founded in 1980 as a Ukrainian seniors residence that today serves a diverse community of elders. Mr. Speaker, I would like to not only wish Dennis a happy and healthy retirement, but also acknowledge the incredible work at St. Peter's and Paul. Let us all continue to stand in solidarity with our Ukrainian community here in Canada and around the world. Slava Ukraini, merci.
The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Not only is it among the 40 most beautiful villages in Quebec, Cap Santé, in my riding of Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier, is a place that is recognized for its artists, craftspeople, agriculture, heritage, and its famous Christmas market. I would like to tell you about a recent initiative in this municipality. It's about creating the local denomination COCS, which stands for Création d'Origine Cap-Santéenne. I would invite you to visit their Facebook page, which is a place where all creators from the town can gather. They can work together to promote their local brand and present their excellent products and services. It's a great way to define their identity and their local characteristics. This makes the bonds in the community even stronger. It is a community that is full of talent. Thank you for encouraging our beautiful region of Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier.
The honourable member for Humber River, Black Creek.
Mr. Speaker, it's my honour to rise in the House today in memory of a great Canadian who played a major role in fostering the beginnings of our relationships with Taiwan. Reverend George Leslie Mackay arrived in Tamsui in 1872 as a missionary, an educator, and a medical practitioner. Reverend Mackay contributed greatly to education and public health in Taiwan. He founded the Oxford College, now known as the Althea University, where he lectured on many subjects including Bible studies and medicine. His work within medicine, while very basic, had major positive impacts for the people of Taiwan. So much so that even today his name is synonymous with medicine in Taiwan, and many hospitals bear the name of Reverend Mackay. It has been 150 years since Reverend Mackay landed in Taiwan to begin his work, and 150 years later the relationship with Canada remains strong. In times like this, we must rally together with our friends, showing support for our democracies and common visions of peace and stability worldwide. We as a nation are honored to continue this friendship sparked so long ago, and will continue to nurture it and stand strong together for our people, for democracy, and for peace. Thank you,
for
Mr.
Mackay.
Speaker.
L'honorable député de Longueuil.
The Honourable Member for Longueuil-Saint-Hubert. Mr. Speaker, Longueuil and Quebec in general are hotbeds of entrepreneurial talent. And yesterday we saw another proof of that. Patrice Vermette, from my writing, got the Oscar for his incredible work on Denis Villeneuve's film Dune. Denis Villeneuve, another remarkable example of the film industry in Quebec. This was Patrice Vermette's third nomination for an Oscar. In his home in Longueuil, in the middle of the pandemic, Patrice brought all his talents to bear in order to bring to the screen Frank Herbert's incredible masterpiece. As Denis Villeneuve said, Denis Villeneuve, who has worked with Mr. Vermette for 10 years, Mr. Vermette is a singular and rare talent. I'd like to congratulate him for this remarkable accomplishment, and I'd like to thank him for bringing Quebec's talents to the eyes of the entire world.
L'honorable député de Glengarry Prescott Russell.
Monsieur le Président, je me lève en chambre afin de célébrer la vie d'un citoyen.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to tell us about an individual who left his mark throughout the Franco-Ontarian community, as well as the agricultural community of Ontario, Régent Pomainville. He was a defender of Franco-Ontarian community and worked hard for his agricultural community. He was a director on the board of the Federation of Agriculture of Ontario for nearly 10 years. And he also played many different roles in the Federation for more than 40 years. Régent cared deeply about preserving Ontario's Francophone cultural heritage. He worked hard to preserve the village of Gagnon. And in his own farm, he built a small church, a saloon, a general store, and even a prison. He worked hard and very seriously on everything that he undertook, but with a great sense of humor. My deepest condolences to his spouse, Barbara, and his friends and family. Thank you.
Member for Renfrew Nipissing Pembroke.
Mr. Speaker, it's my pleasure to recognize a lifetime achievement for Dr. Harry Ng, founder of Bubble Technology Industries, BTI. His company, located in Chalk River, has been selected for induction into the prestigious U.S. Space Technology Hall of Fame. BTI produces a small device for measuring neutron radiation called the bubble detector. In use for over 30 years and thousands of applications, the technology has been deployed on over 24 space missions to assess radiation risks in space. The bubble detector is used to monitor radiation in hospitals, power plants, manufacturing facilities, nuclear submarines, and was used to protect emergency responders after nuclear incidents at Fukushima and Chernobyl. Currently, BTI is pursuing new opportunities to search for water on the moon and to protect astronauts from radiation. Congratulations to Dr. Harry Ng, Vice President Leanne Ng, Head of Research Dr. Martin Smith, and everyone at Bubble Technology on their induction into the U.S. Space Technology Hall of Fame.
The Honourable Member for St. John's East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Master Mariners of Canada Newfoundland and Labrador Division Nautical Science Competition recently celebrated their 10th anniversary, a fun, competitive, and challenging event for the next generation of seafarers. My province and the ocean are inseparable. And with events like this, our leadership in both the marine industry and global oceans economy is growing like never before. I'm also proud to say my family's connection to the sea runs deep. From my grandfather's schooner to my cousin's longliner, and now I'm very proud of my son Paddy as he works towards his Master Mariner designation in our country's Arctic waters. I want to extend my sincere congratulations to all the Master Mariner student participants and to the Institute's Associate VP and the remarkable team. Well done. Thank you.
Can I just remind folks, just to keep the conversations, if you're going to have a good conversation, just take it out into the lobbies. The Honourable Member for Halifax.
Mr. Speaker, today I rise to celebrate Ben Proudfoot, a filmmaker from Halifax who took home the Oscar for Best Documentary Short at last night's Academy Awards. How about that? Ben's winning film, The Queen of Basketball, tells the often overlooked story of Louisa Harris, the only woman to be officially drafted by the NBA, the first woman inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame, and the first woman to score a basket at the Olympics. In his acceptance speech last night, Ben said, "If there's anyone out there that still doubts whether there's an audience for female athletes, let this Academy Award be the answer." Throughout his career, Ben has used film to shine a light on trailblazing women like Heather Lawson, the first woman trained as a stonemason in Canada, and astronomer Jocelyn Bell Brunel for her work on the discovery of pulsars. And Mr. Speaker, speaking of pulsars, today people in Ben's hometown of Halifax are over the moon with pride, and I invite all members to join us in congratulating him on this remarkable achievement. Congratulations, Ben! Hear, hear.
The Honourable Member for Abbotsford.
Abbotsford has a proud tradition of agricultural excellence. With the most productive soil in Canada, my community produces much of the food that finds its way to the tables of Canadians. Abbotsford is the blueberry capital of North America, with almost a third of our cultivated land reserved for the growing of berries. Nurseries, greenhouses, dairy and poultry barns dot our landscape. In fact, we've become the breadbasket of BC and also claim the largest farm gate sales per hectare in Canada. Our chicken and egg producers deliver a secure supply of premium quality products to kitchen tables every day. But our farmers aren't immune to environmental challenges. This past November, we experienced a once-in-a-lifetime storm that spawned massive flooding across Abbotsford. Our farmers experienced catastrophic losses of crops and livestock. Despite these challenges, they're bouncing back. So, to the farmers of Abbotsford and across Canada, I say a big thank you for the contribution you make to a healthy and prosperous Canada.
The Honourable Member for Sault Ste. Marie.
Mr. Speaker, you know that Sault Ste. Marie is a kind, caring community, and throughout our history, Ukrainians have contributed to our city's growth and development. Saultites have been rallying in support of Ukrainians the past few weeks. The March for Ukraine Sovereignty last week was a multi-religious march where our local faith leaders from all religions organized and came together, and more than 500 people showed up to pledge their support and demonstrate their solidarity for Ukraine. I have received numerous phone calls from constituents pledging housing, food, work, and more for refugees coming to Sault Ste. Marie. I'm working closely with our local partners at the Ukraine Church, City Hall, and community organizations to ensure that we have an action plan, infrastructure, and hub for resources to support and welcome Ukrainians with open arms. Saultites are once again showing their love, compassion, and community support for refugees and displaced peoples, and we will be prepared to welcome as many Ukrainians as possible. We will continue to find ways to support refugees, and we'll be prepared for whatever comes our way. Slava Ukraini.
Slava Ukraini.
The Honourable Member for Fort McMurray Cold Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have the privilege of representing the fine women and men of Four Wings stationed in Cold Lake. The Prime Minister has delayed selecting the future fighter for over 6 years, and Conservatives have been pushing to select the F-35s to replace the old F-18s. In fact, we need to increase our defense spending to 2% GDP to meet our NATO commitments and support our armed forces. We have first-rate soldiers relying on increasingly second-rate equipment, and this government should have addressed the issue before we were in crisis. The Prime Minister and his Minister of Foreign Affairs seem to believe that we can lay down our norms and accomplish our foreign policy goals through the power of convening and moral authority. Well, I think we saw at the European Parliament how seriously the world takes this government's moral authority. I hope the government will wake up, make the necessary decisions and investments to modernize our armed forces, and stop resting our foreign policy goals on the Prime Minister's personal brand. Our country and the women and men who defend it deserve better.
The honourable member for Edmonton Manning.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In Canada's latest celebrity marriage, the Prime Minister's new bride has given him the gift of time to plan an exit strategy without electoral embarrassment, while ignoring the voice of Quebec. Given this government's history of broken promises, NDP members should remember the warning about not trusting Liberals bearing gifts. This Trojan horse wedding is designed not to deliver pharmacare and dental care, but to show the irrelevance of the NDP. The Prime Minister may not yet have served the divorce papers on this relationship, but I can assure you that he has already drawn them up. In this marriage of convenience, the losers will be the Canadian people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Vaudreuil-Soulanges.
Mr. Speaker, this week I celebrate 10 years in remission from cancer. 10 years after my last treatment. After my last treatment and hearing the words, "Your scans are clear," I stand here in this house as grateful as ever. Grateful to Dr. David High and his incredible team at the Carbone Cancer Centre, and Dr. Jacques Corcos and the incredible team at the Siegel Cancer Centre. Grateful to my parents, family, and friends who called, visited, and supported me. Grateful to my incredible wife who day in and day out, month in and month out, stood by me through it all. And Mr. Speaker, grateful to be here in this house today. Je prends également la parole pour me souvenir de tous.
I also rise to remember all those who were not as lucky, Mr. Speaker. Our loved ones, young and old, who fought just as hard, but who did not make it. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I rise to offer my thoughts on behalf of this House to all those who are currently struggling with this fight. For all those who are giving it everything they have. Don't give up. You've got this. We are standing with you. Thank you.
The honourable member for London Fanshawe.
Last year, my community lost an incredible social justice activist and a mentor of mine, someone who knew there was no greater obligation than to look out for your neighbor and community. Jack Verhulst was a child of war-torn, Nazi-occupied Holland. He knew, growing up, the hardship and poverty and fear of war. Jack understood the importance of peace, security, and compassion and brought those lessons with him when he emigrated to Canada in the early 50s. Jack was a truck driver, a farmer, and a union man. He joined the NDP because of founder Tommy Douglas. Jack admired Tommy's integrity. There wasn't a more dedicated campaigner. Jack was a writing president and a candidate, but Jack was most known as a legendary fundraiser. There was no saying no to Jack, though some may have tried. We all miss him, but none more than his wife Tina, children Marianne, Maurice, and Rita, and his grandson Dylan, and of course the Rotting Association of Perth Wellington. They were his strength and inspired his passion for fairness and equity. That's what Jack worked to achieve, and that's what we in this House must continue to strive for. Thank you, Jack.
L'honorable député de Drummond.
The honourable member for Drummond. Mr. Speaker, Drummond's Chamber of Commerce and Industry is celebrating its 120th anniversary. Drummond is an excellent entrepreneurial area of Quebec. Do you know the expression, one man's pain is another's gain? That does not apply in Drummond, because in Drummond we understand that it's not a zero-sum game. And in fact, when someone succeeds, that helps everyone else. When there's a new business opened in Drummond, the entire business community, including the Chamber of Commerce, rushes to support it and encourage it to help it become the next success in the region. The Chamber of Commerce is proud of its history supporting the business community in Quebec, and it is increasingly an essential tool for economic development in the region. An extremely welcoming region for business people from every background. I would like to congratulate the leader of the Chamber of Commerce, Marc Tremblay, as well as members of the board, and I'd also like to congratulate the Director General, Alexandra Houle, and her team on their hard work. I'd like to wish a happy anniversary to the Chamber of Commerce of Drummond. The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, yesterday we saw the Canadian men's soccer team qualify for the 2022 World Cup by winning 4-0 against Jamaica. I'd like to thank the entire team. Thanks to players like Jonathan, David, and Carl. Their perseverance and determination, as well as their cooperation on the team, have been something to see, especially after Alfonso Davies' myocarditis. I'd also like to thank all those behind the scenes, such as the chief coach. And as a former coach, I know how hard all of these people have worked to bring the team to their victory. The win will have a real impact on the popularity of the sport in Canada, including our team in the Saguenay. Team Canada, we will be with you. We will support you. Make us proud, just like Canada's women's team did. Go Canada.
The Honourable Member for Toronto Danforth.
Mr. Speaker, Alzheimer's impacts so many of our families, friends, neighbors. It's a terrible disease. Anthony, or Tony Ng, was able to see the signs of dementia develop in his father years ago. And when he saw those signs developing for himself, he joined the Toronto Memory Program. This year, he is the recipient of the National Citizen Scientist Cornerstone Award. It's an award that recognizes clinical trial volunteers who personally have made an extraordinary effort to support local Alzheimer's research. He's supported by his wife, Kathy, in this work, and they are described as medical research heroes. Thank you, Tony, for everything you are doing to advance Alzheimer's research.
Oral questions. Question orale. L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, let me tell you a little bit about my life. On Saturday, I went with my wife, as I do almost every week, grocery shopping, and a number of people came up to me to tell me something. Everything is costing more money. Eggs, milk, grains, coffee, everything. And this is added to the cost of gas, $1.85 a litre in my riding of Mégantic-L'Érable. With this new NDP Liberal government, people are concerned. They can't make ends meet. Can the Prime Minister, instead of negotiating his political future behind closed doors, can he tell us how he intends to feed Canadian families?
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives are continuing to create economic fiction. Let me share some facts. First of all, Statistics Canada published data that show that the GDP is growing 6.7%. The economy had the greatest growth among the G7. Third, our economy will be the largest growth in the G7. Those are the facts, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. First of all, I would invite my colleague to come grocery shopping with me and talk to people. Second, we proposed a simple solution. Put an end temporarily to the GST on gas. We know that eggs, milk, cereals, grains don't appear by magic on the grocery shelves. They are taken by truck. They use gas. That costs more. Not only is the NDP Liberal government voting against our proposal, they are prepared to add new taxes starting April 1st. The new democratic vision for this new NDP Liberal government has finally seen the light of day. When will they stop seeing the middle class as an endless source of taxes? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, the opposition has raised the important question of affordability. Today we heard great news about this, Mr. Speaker. We have signed an agreement for several $billions for childcare with Ontario. Yes, absolutely. And we officially signed an agreement with each province and each territory. It's good news for families, good news for Canadians, good news for Quebecers. On this side of the House, that's good news. The honourable member for the Mégantic-L'Érable last week, one of the first announcements by this NDP Liberal government was to set conditions on the provinces to start discussions on healthcare transfers. Nothing can no longer stand in this government's path in interfering in provincial jurisdiction. The centralizing NDP Liberal coalition will impose not one, not two, but 5 conditions, Mr. Speaker. The Minister of Health is unable to provide scientific justification for maintaining the vaccine mandate, now wants to teach Quebec and the provinces a lesson. The solution is to trust provincial officials. What's the problem with that? The Honourable Minister of Health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Trusting and working together, that's exactly what we have done over the past 2 years throughout the COVID-19 pandemic with record investments in healthcare, safety and security. What is most important, Mr. Speaker, is this exceptional collaboration to save hundreds of thousands of lives here in Canada, tens of thousands of dollars in revenue. We'll continue to work together.
Mr. Speaker, the PBO released a report that literally blows the doors off the Environment Minister's talking points on the carbon tax. The tax will cost Canadians, and it isn't neutral when you include the cost to the economy. 6 in 10 Canadian families are actually now going to be losing money. Shame. Will the minister admit this carbon tax is just voodoo economics, or are they going to say the PBO experts got it wrong?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank the Parliamentary Budget Officer for his work, which confirms that the price on pollution has a progressive impact and gives 8 out of 10 families more back through the climate action rebate than they pay. Putting a price on carbon pollution is recognized as one of the most efficient ways to drive down emissions and fight climate change. And again, Mr. Speaker, let me point out that the Conservative member for New Brunswick Southwest is on the record saying his province should go back to using the federal carbon price. We agree with him, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Dufferin-Caledon.
Mr. Speaker, we know this is question period, not answer period, but perhaps that member and this government should actually read the report before they give a statement in the House. The PBO analysis is actually absolutely clear. I'm not surprised that this government do the hard work of the complicated calculations because of a Prime Minister who says, I don't think about monetary policy. So either the minister or this government is incompetent because they didn't do a full analysis of the carbon tax, or they knew it and were just hiding it from Canadians. Which one is it?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Environment.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And again, the Parliamentary Budget Officer confirmed that the majority of households will receive more in climate action rebates than they pay. That's 8 out of 10 families. I'm not sure where the Honourable Member is getting his numbers from. And speaking of numbers, Mr. Speaker, this year a family of 4 will receive up to $745 in Ontario, $830 in my home province of Manitoba, $1,100 in Saskatchewan and Alberta. Mr. Speaker, we're fighting climate change and increasing affordability.
Now we're on question 6, and it's getting hard to listen to hear it already. So we just keep our keep it civil here.
The Honourable Member for La Prairie, Mr. Speaker, it would be so simple to give Quebec the means to assume its health care responsibilities. That's all Quebec is asking for. That is that the federal government pay its 35%, but Ottawa continues to try to tell us what to do with Quebecers' money. It wants to be seen as a savior, but every year it cuts its share of healthcare costs. It's its own fault if the system is underfunded. It's like a pyromanic fireman. They're starting a fire and then telling us how to put the fire out. When will Ottawa recognize that the expertise is in Ottawa, not in this Parliament, not here and not over there? The Honourable Minister of Health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank my colleague for the opportunity to say more about important investments that we have millions unconditionally for healthcare transfers, along with the $45 billion that will start April 1st in order to reduce the delays between diagnosis and surgery that have been so difficult over the last few months. So this will help us to catch up to prepare the healthcare system for the future. The honourable member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, if at least this government was an expert in its own areas of jurisdiction, but everything that it touches in its own areas of jurisdiction turned into a fiasco. The Phoenix pay system, they can't even pay its own employees. Endless immigration files, chaos for refugees, Ukrainian refugees, First Nations, they don't even have access to drinking water. We're talking about disaster after disaster, and now they're saying we're going to take care of healthcare needs. It's Quebec's jurisdiction. Are we not right to be worried? Why don't they just simply increase the healthcare transfers like everyone is asking them to do? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, what I would suggest you do after question period is to invest in companies that make shirts, because the Bloc Québécois is ripping its shirts every day, and money could be made off this, Mr. Speaker. I would like to say to the colleagues that it's possible for Ottawa and Quebec to collaborate. It's possible to work together for all Quebecers, and the Minister of Health has said it very clearly. There are no conditions on the money that was announced. Thank you. The honourable member for Rosemount Petite Patrie. The president of Ukraine has criticized the international community for being too slow in implementing sanctions against Russia. Canada is the home to the headquarters of the largest Russian uranium producer, owned by the Putin government, and it's almost untouched by sanctions imposed by the Liberals. We don't know how many assets have been frozen in Canada, and if the sanctions are hurting Putin, the Ukrainian people are fighting for their survival and deserve more than empty words. Can the government tell us how many assets and sanctions have been imposed? Assets frozen and sanctions imposed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank my colleague for that important question because it allows me to say a few things. First of all, we are imposing sanctions. We are freezing assets for individuals and organizations. They have no value. They can't be sold. They can't be transferred. In short, these transactions are impossible. And contravening these sanctions is subject to further sanctions. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Or Edmonton Strathcona.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With all due respect, that was not the question that my colleague was asking. Ukrainians are fighting for their lives. President Zelensky is pleading for help as Putin commits war crimes against the Ukrainian people. Zelensky has said the governments have been too slow in implementing all possible sanctions to stop the Russian invasion. Yet we still don't know if the sanctions are being enforced, and we still don't know if they are effectively being enforced and Russian assets are being frozen.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Obviously, we've imposed sanctions and we've delivered lethal and non-lethal aid. Have we done a lot? Yes. Is there more to be done? Absolutely. And that is why we will continue to impose sanctions. But just to be clear, Mr. Speaker, when we impose sanctions, we're making their assets completely useless and we're depriving them from value. Going against sanction is also a criminal offense. Thank you.
The honourable member for Abbotsford.
My question is to the new NDP Liberal Prime Minister. During the last election, the NDP promised to spend a whopping $214 billion of taxpayers' money with no plan to balance the budget. Now the NDP and Liberals have negotiated a backroom deal to go on a massive spending spree that will cheat future generations out of their prosperity. How many billions has this Prime Minister bargained away to hang on to power? And how many of the NDP's spending demands will we see in the upcoming budget?
The Honourable Minister of Tourism and Associate Minister of Finance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Conservatives continue to talk down the Canadian economy and spin economic fiction, so let me take this opportunity to share some good news and some facts. Fact, StatsCan data showed that our GDP grew by 6.7% in Q4, exceeding market expectations. Fact, our economy is the second fastest growing in the G7. Fact, our economy will be the fastest growing in the G7 next year. And fact, our Our GDP is now back to pre-pandemic levels. Those are the facts, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Abbotsford.
So, to the new NDP Liberal Finance Minister. Inflation is raging and Canadians have been left behind. Cost of everything is skyrocketing: gas, groceries, household goods. Millions of families have seen the dream of home ownership slip through their fingers. Canadians are struggling to balance their budgets, yet the minister refuses to balance her own. When will she finally tell us what she plans to do about the affordability crisis? And when will she finally stop borrowing and spending and get inflation under control?
The honourable minister.
Mr. Speaker, the opposition is raising the important issue of affordability, and today we saw incredible news on that front. Mr. Speaker, this government has signed a deal with Ontario on childcare. This multi-billion-dollar deal will be good for children, for families across the province, and now we have a deal with every province and territory in the country. That's affordability, that's focusing on families, that's focusing on Canadians.
The honourable member for Simcoe North.
Mr. Speaker, it's estimated that this new NDP Liberal agreement will cost taxpayers upwards of $40 billion by the end of the term. Last week, Scotiabank said that this finance minister risks further undermining Ottawa's credibility to tackling runaway inflation. That's because when inflation is more than double the 2% target and where we are in the business cycle, additional spending will only make inflation worse. So, Mr. Speaker, will the Minister of Finance change her course, or will she continue to plow ahead with additional spending that will make inflation worse?
The Honourable Minister of Tourism and Associate Minister of Finance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The other side of the aisle continues to obstruct and delay important legislation that will benefit Canadians and make life more affordable. On Bill C-8 alone, which is up for debate right now, the Conservatives could stop blocking and gutting the bill so that $1.7 billion could flow for COVID rapid tests, $100 million for ventilations in our schools, tax relief for teachers, real action to help with the cost of housing. While they're obstructing, we're constructing, we're going to work every day for Canadians, Mr. Speaker.
Nobody clapped for you.
The honourable member for Battle River Crowfoot.
Mr. Speaker, last week a 73-year-old constituent named Dot called me frustrated and upset because she can barely afford groceries and does not have enough to cover her monthly bills. Under the Liberals' fiscal watch, inflation has spiraled to 5.7%, and Canadians are paying more for essentials because of the carbon tax, a tax that disproportionately affects seniors and rural Canadians. When will this NDP Liberal government realize that their carbon tax hike and the corresponding out-of-control inflation is hurting Canadians?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we all know that climate change is real and that we should protect Canadians from the associated dangers and real costs. We introduced price on carbon pollution across Canada because it is a market mechanism and the most effective way to ensure that we continue to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. But, Mr. Speaker, here are the real numbers for Canadian families. An average family of 4 in Ontario, $745 back to them, $832 in Manitoba, $1,100 in Saskatchewan, and in my own home province of Alberta, $1,079. That's real action on climate change and real action on affordability.
Nobody clapped again.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, last Friday, the Deputy Governor of Canada said, and I quote, that the inflation would continue to rise and members of our lower income earners of our society would be the most vulnerable. That is what the Conservatives have been saying for weeks. We have to attack inflation because it's affecting the most vulnerable members of our society. Unfortunately, this government is spending even more and then increasing inflation. Will the government drop and cancel the tax increase that's set for April 1st? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, we all know that climate change is real and that we must protect Canadians from the real costs of these changes. Look at the money that's coming back to taxpayers in Ontario. We're talking about $745, $832 in Manitoba and Saskatchewan, more than $1,100. The money is coming back to taxpayers. That's the plan. It's effective, and we are continuing to make life more affordable. The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent, the reality is that inflation has never been as high at 5.7% in the last 40 years. The reality, Mr. Speaker, is that April 1st is Friday, and Friday there will be an increase in the Liberal tax, and Canadians don't want it. A real way to help Canadians get through inflation is to cancel this tax increase. Will the government finally understand and see reason and give Canadian families a break? The Honourable Minister of Tourism and Associate Minister of Finance. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's not surprising to see the Conservatives campaign for less climate change action and fight against the tariffication of carbon. Premier of New Brunswick said that there needed to be a carbon tax in order for people to be able to get money directly into their pockets. The federal carbon tax returns are sent to people through the mail. And on this side of the House, Mr. Speaker, we are taking action. The honourable member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Wednesday, before the European Parliament, the Prime Minister said, we will not abandon Ukraine. Today, Radio Canada CBC has confirmed that the government has abandoned Ukrainians. They are being plunged into an endless administrative chaos, which prevents them from taking shelter in Quebec and Canada. Despite our cooperation and our efforts, the federal government has failed on the ground to help refugees in the worst situation that is even worse than we could have imagined. Well, let's deal with the paperwork later and stop the delays. When will the government charter planes and go get families? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my colleague again for all his work and particularly his cooperation. And I can tell the House that since the beginning we have been working with our partners, including our air transportation partners. I can tell this House that with regard to the Government of Canada's actions, we are sending biometric letters of instruction every 4 hours, Mr. Speaker. We're increasing the number of biometric employees in the region. We're going to send more employees in order to meet the increased demand. We are continuing to work hard to bring the most Ukrainians possible back to Canada. The honourable member for Lac-Saint-Jean. More employees. How is it possible that after 33 days of war, there is only one center in Poland, one only, where refugees can do and provide their biometrics? All they can do is to refresh the website, which keeps crashing, in the hope of getting an almost inexistent appointment in this single center. Does the government think that the war is only happening from 9 to 5, Monday to Friday? Emergency travel authorizations are a failure. When will the government end this and create an air bridge? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Canada will continue to support people fleeing war in Ukraine. As I said, we have increased the number of employees and biometric units in the region, and we're sending more employees. I'd also like to tell the House that we will increase the hours in the visa processing centers consistent with local regulations. We will help the most Ukrainians possible as quickly as possible. The honourable member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Nothing reassuring there. 3 weeks ago, the Bloc Québécois asked the government to do better, and now we're at another step. The minister's program to welcome Ukrainian refugees is a failure. Refugees of the war in Ukraine have to go to Slovakia or Portugal in order to get services from Canada. These people are fleeing war, and they have to flee yet again, further still, in order to get around the federal government's incompetence. When will the minister finally delay the administrative part, charter planes, and bring these people here? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the question because this gives me an opportunity to state that what the minister said this morning concerning our involvement. We have expanded the federal government's program for resettlement of Ukrainian refugees here in Canada. We will include language training job assistance, and we will continue to provide additional supports to Ukrainians as they settle in their new communities. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Foothills.
Innovative practices like zero tillage, precision farming, and 4R nutrient stewardship ensure that Canadian farmers lead the world in environmental sustainability. These practices should be celebrated, but instead the NDP Liberal Carbon Tax Coalition is punishing Canadian farmers. And the Agriculture Minister is complicit. Not only did she vote against exempting farm fuels from the carbon tax, she supports the Coalition's increase in the carbon tax on April 1st. Shame. Canadian agriculture is at a breaking point and a food shortage is looming. Will the Agriculture Minister change her course and oppose a carbon tax increase on April 1st?
Madame la Ministre de l'Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, I can tell you that farmers understand the importance of fighting against climate change. They care for their land. Obviously, it's the most important things for them. They are the first one to be impacted by climate change, and they know we are supporting them with different funds, with investment, helping them to afford clean technologies, helping them to adopt better practices, investing in science, research, and innovation as well. So we are there to support farmers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Excellent. The honourable member for Foothills.
Do you know what helps them afford new technology, new innovation? Not crippling them with the carbon tax. Exactly. But let's be clear. The Parliamentary Budget Officer said this. Not only does the carbon tax not reduce emissions, surprise, surprise, it's not carbon neutral either. What is happening is the Liberal rebate will give farmers pennies on the dollar compared to what they pay. This is devastating to Canadian farmers. The Liberal NDP Carbon Tax Coalition is going to take millions of dollars out of the pockets of farmers and agri-food businesses. Will the Agriculture Minister listen to farmers and oppose any increase in the carbon tax on April 1st?
What do you hate? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government put a price on carbon pollution, which is ensuring cleaner air, fewer emissions, and more money in people's pockets. As the carbon price increases, these payments also increase, leaving most Canadians with more money in their pocket. Mr. Speaker, this year, as I mentioned before, a family of four will receive up to $745 in Ontario in rebates, $830 in Manitoba, $1,100 in Saskatchewan and Alberta. Mr. Speaker, the quarterly checks that people will receive are real. Climate change is real, Mr. Speaker.
Good job. Are we ready to continue?
I don't know, ask Erickson.
Very good. The honourable member for Lethbridge.
This NDP Liberal government plans to kick Canadians while they're already down. The carbon tax will grow by 25% on April 1st. Now, it might be April Fool's, but it's no joke. The government tries to claim that there's actually more money going back into the hands of Canadians through this taxation scheme. However, the PBO says otherwise. The Parliamentary Budget Officer actually says that Canadians definitely pay more than they get back. So will the NDP Liberal government stop punishing Canadians and scrap the tax hike?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure my honourable colleague heard me the first time, but the Parliamentary Budget Officer confirms that the price on pollution is a progressive price on pollution and gives 8 out of 10 families more back through the climate action rebate than they pay. Putting a price on carbon pollution is recognized as one of the most efficient ways to drive down emissions and fight climate change. And by maintaining a fair price on pollution across the country, Mr. Speaker, we're ensuring that carbon pricing remains affordable for Canadians no matter where they live.
The honourable member for Victoria.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians want real climate action. But the Liberals' rhetoric just doesn't match their actions. Despite their promises, this government has the worst record of any G7 country. The minister claims they're taking bold action, but since signing the Paris Agreement, Canada is the only country...
Hold on. Let's just back up here a little bit. I'm having trouble hearing the full answer, the full question here. So I'm going to ask the member to restart her question, and so we have the opportunity to hear it. The honourable member for Victoria.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians want bold climate action. But the Liberals' rhetoric just doesn't match their actions. Despite their promises, the government has the worst climate record of any G7 country. The minister claims they're taking bold action, but since signing the Paris Agreement, Canada is the only country whose emissions have increased every single year. And the Liberals are still handing out billions to big oil and gas. We are running out of time. We need a bold emissions reduction plan. But how can Canadians trust this government when they do the opposite of what they promise?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, the Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I agree with the Honourable Member that Canadians are already feeling the impacts of climate change from flooding, wildfires, deadly heat waves, and other extreme weather events. And, Mr. Speaker, we are taking bold action, from putting a price on pollution, investing in clean energy, retrofitting homes, decarbonizing industry, setting new emission reduction targets, and making historic investments in nature. Mr. Speaker, we've invested $100 billion in these measures to date, and we will keep doing more, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Timmins James Bay.
Last week, the Conger ice shelf in Antarctica collapsed amidst record temperatures, and scientists are saying the polar region may be past the tipping point. And yet last week, this government increased oil production by 109 million barrels a year. Burning the planet might seem like a good idea for business, but it is condemning our children to a terrible future. So to the Environment Minister, he has missed every single target he's established. Will his new plan include a hard limit on fossil fuel production, yes or no?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Since 2015, Canada has been delivering on real climate action that has cut pollution, created new middle-class jobs, and protected a healthy environment, including, as I said, Mr. Speaker, $100 billion in investments. To further this critical work and ensure that Canada's economy and workers benefit from the global transition to a clean economy, our government will continue to make important investments to fight the climate crisis and build a better future for everyone. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Good job. The Honourable Member for Mississauga-Streetsville.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank the incredible contribution that healthcare workers have made and continue to make in Canada's response to the pandemic. The Omicron wave is receding, but we need to recognize that COVID is not going to disappear. Unfortunately, we know that COVID-19 presented challenges for our healthcare system. Too many Canadians had their care deferred during the pandemic, resulting in a significant backlog of surgeries and diagnostics. Can the Minister of Health please update this House on its recent $2 billion transfer to the provinces and territories to help clear surgery and diagnostic backlogs?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to our dear colleague from Mississauga-Streetsville for her question and her hard work. Last Friday, we announced an additional support of $2 billion to help provinces and territories reduce backlogs in surgeries and treatments, and also support our healthcare workers to ensure better access to a doctor or family health team, to create digital health records for all, to improve mental health and substance use services for all, and helping everyone grow old in dignity and in safety across Canada. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to work together to ensure all Canadians have the care they need and deserve.
The Honourable Member for Sarnia-Lambton.
Mr. Speaker, President Biden made exemptions to the vaccine mandates for truckers who drive solo and for companies with less than 100 employees. As part of the roadmap that the Prime Minister signed with the President, they agreed to match requirements at the border. And so will the Prime Minister look for that match to get exemptions for unvaccinated Canadian truckers in order that we can address the trucker shortage here in Canada?
Good question.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, from the beginning of the pandemic, we made a commitment to Canadians and Canadian businesses that we will do whatever it takes to protect their health and safety. And we've put in place a system of measures to ensure that we protect travelers, to protect workers, and to protect our economy. The good news, Mr. Speaker, is that as circumstances are changing, we are adjusting these measures. And we've been always following the advice that we've been receiving from our public health experts. Right now, Mr. Speaker, we continue to encourage people to get vaccinated because it's the best thing to do to protect themselves and those around them.
The Honourable Member for Carlton Trail, Eagle Creek.
While countries around the world and provinces across Canada are removing vaccine mandates, a closer look at labour regulations reveals that last December the government quietly included making mandatory vaccines permanent in its forward regulatory plan. They claim this policy will reduce transmissibility, but we know that's not the case. Will the NDP Liberal government drop this unscientific regulation, which will negatively impact thousands of public servants?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very glad to answer this question because of our joint work together with provinces and territories over the last 2 years, involving a lot of difficult decisions and difficult actions on the part of individual Canadians. We essentially saved together tens of thousands of lives. Had we not done that, Mr. Speaker, had we in fact had the type of public policies and vaccination rates that we saw south of the border, 60,000 additional lives would have been lost in Canada, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for New Brunswick Southwest.
Mr. Speaker, the Health Minister's lines on COVID-19 changed with the blink of an eye. Last month, he told this House that provincial governments determine mask mandates. Now, Liberals want fully vaccinated Canadian families who travel to the United States and return home to wear masks in all public settings for 14 days. Where is the science for this unenforceable demand? And why is Ottawa interfering in what it previously said was provincial jurisdiction?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I spoke earlier, every policy we take, we keep in mind that we want to protect the health and safety of Canadians, including travelers, including those who work in the traveling industry, those who work in the tourism sector. And we were regularly consulting our experts, Mr. Speaker, and we have been adjusting our policies to respond to the changing circumstances. So, Mr. Speaker, I ask my colleagues to encourage Canadians to follow the science, to do whatever they can to protect themselves and to protect those who they love. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Costa Bay, Central Notre Dame.
Mr. Speaker, last night I spoke with a heartbroken Lisa Budgell, living in Alberta, wanting to properly mourn her mom, who just passed away in my riding. Lisa had one COVID vaccine and recently had COVID and is waiting for her second shot. She's not allowed to board a plane in Canada.
Shame.
Lisa's mental health will be forever scarred if she's unable to say goodbye to her mom. Will the Prime Minister have a heart, swallow his pride, follow the provinces, and end these travel restrictions now?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I think the Member of Parliament was very right in pointing to the difficulties that many millions of Canadians have lived through in the last 2 years. The biggest health crisis in over a century, the biggest economic crisis since the Second World War. The reason, Mr. Speaker, that we went through this crisis well in Canada and better than many other places is that we have stuck together. We have had each other's back. We have followed public health measures so that at the end we end up stronger and more united and can look forward to continuing the fight against COVID-19 as we relax some of the measures that we've seen over the last few weeks.
L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Avignon-Lamitis-Matane-Matapédia. Mr. Speaker, tomorrow the Minister of the Environment will participate in the Globe Forum to talk about how to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. He'll have to present his emissions reductions plan as required by the legislation passed last June. If Canada is to have any credibility, it will have to tackle its biggest polluter right now, the oil and gas sector. In his plan, the Minister will have to 1. Cap oil production, 2. Commit to having no new oil and gas extraction projects, and 3. Abolish all fossil fuel subsidies. Will the Minister announce these 3 essential measures tomorrow?
L'honorable Secretary Parliament.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
I want to thank the honourable member as well. Canada, as she knows, is committed to phasing out fossil fuel subsidies in the coming 2 years, and we have already phased out 8 tax breaks for the fossil fuel sector. We have put in place an escalating pollution pricing system nationally for heavy emitting industries through 2030, which provides the biggest emitters with the biggest incentives to reduce carbon pollution. Mr. Speaker, we are working on a plan to cap oil and gas sector emissions and ensure the sector makes an achievable contribution to our climate goals. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Avignon-Lamitis-Matane-Matapédia. Mr. Speaker, the minister often presents carbon capture and storage as a miracle solution. But investing in it doesn't mean that the government will get off fossil fuels. It means it will continue to subsidize fossil fuels even longer. 400 scientists have written to the minister saying that this is a red herring, it's not effective, it's expensive, and it takes a long time to implement. The minister himself in an interview said that we're several years away from being able to use this commercially. Mr. Speaker, tomorrow the minister can either choose to get off fossil fuels or artificially extend their life through storage and capture. What will he choose?
L'honorable Secretary Parlementaire.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and again thank the honourable member. Mr. Speaker, again I would emphasize that we are taking bold action on climate change, from putting a price on pollution, investing in clean energy, retrofitting homes, decarbonizing industry. And yes, Mr. Speaker, we see carbon capture and underground storage as part of the solution. It is part of the $100 billion that we are investing in measures to date. And Mr. Speaker, we will be doing more, and I look forward to the emissions reduction plan that the minister will table shortly.
The honourable member for Charlesbourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, more than 14 years. That's how long Canada has been part of the F-35 acquisition group along with other countries. That's the number of years that have been lost because the Prime Minister kept deferring the purchase of these planes after having waited many years for political reasons. Will we finally get an answer? Will the F-35s be Canada's final choice, or is this just another announcement that is going to drag things on even longer? The Honourable Minister.
Merci à mon collègue.
Thank you to my colleague for this question.
Today is a great day for Canadians and for the Canadian Armed Forces. This morning, officials informed me that Lockheed Martin has been identified as the top-ranked bidder to provide 88 fighter jets to our Royal Canadian Air Force. This is a highly complex procurement and process and represents the most significant investment in the Royal Canadian Air Force in more than 30 years. The procurement of jets will enhance Canada's safety and security while generating jobs and economic growth. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for South Surrey White Rock.
Mr. Speaker, with Ukraine fighting for its life, Canada sent them 50-year-old anti-tank weapons, weapons that could blow up in their faces. When the Ukrainians fire next-generation light anti-tank weapons from Great Britain, they yell, "God save the Queen!" When they fire Carl Gustavs from Canada, they must say a prayer. With the Russian threat to our allies, our Arctic, and the war, when will this government go to the open market and buy modern weapons to help protect Ukraine and Canada?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I differ with the member opposite's characterization of Canada's aid to date. In fact, I have announced 6 tranches of military aid, both lethal and non-lethal, to Ukraine since February alone, Mr. Speaker. This represents well over $100 million in military aid to Ukraine. We've also assisted our allies, Mr. Speaker, via 21 flights on the C-130s. Canada is providing airlift support across the NATO alliance. We are there for Ukraine. We stand with their sovereignty and stability, and we will be there until we need to. Thank you.
The honourable member for Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke.
Mr. Speaker, the government's committed 3,400 troops to augment NATO's eastern flank should Putin's war spread to an alliance member. NATO members have contingencies to safeguard troops in case Putin deploys nuclear or chemical weapons. The Liberals stood down our military for the better part of 2 years during COVID. New recruits were put into solitary confinement, missing the rare chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear training course. The safety of our women and men is at risk when they're not fully trained. Why is this NDP Liberal government putting our troops in harm's way without the proper protection?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, I'm surprised at the member opposite's characterization of our Canadian Armed Forces. In fact, our commitment to NATO operations, including Operation Reassurance, is unwavering. To reinforce our deterrent measures in Europe, in the face of rising tensions, we announced that we are increasing military contributions in support of NATO and in support of Operation Reassurance, up to 460 additional CAF personnel, an artillery battery in Latvia, a second frigate which departed Halifax over the past couple of weeks, and a maritime patrol aircraft. Mr. Speaker, we are there for NATO. We are there for Ukraine. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Alfred Pellan. Mr. Speaker, the pandemic has created unprecedented challenges for Canada's healthcare system, and there's a real need to support that system. Despite high vaccination rates in Canada, COVID-19 continues to threaten our health, social, and economic well-being. The pandemic has had an impact on the healthcare system, such as the cancellation of elective surgeries. My constituents are also concerned about the healthcare system's ability to deal with another wave of the virus. Can the Minister of Health inform this House of the recent $2 billion transfer to the provinces and territories to support our healthcare system? The Honourable Minister of Health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the colleague from Alfred Pellan for his excellent work. Last Friday, we announced a one-time $2 billion payment to the provinces and territories on an equal per capita basis. It was no strings attached, and it will allow them to deal with the backlog of canceled surgeries and so on, and to support our healthcare workers who suffered so much through the COVID pandemic. It will allow us to create integrated digital health records for all, improve mental health services, and help everyone live with dignity.
The Honourable Member for Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Over the last year, Nunavut has experienced record-high water advisories. Iqaluit residents have not known if their water is safe to drink for over 6 months. This government has long promised to make infrastructure funding for the North a priority, but has failed. Why do mums in Iqaluit still have to bathe their babies in bottled water?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. From the very beginning, our government's been engaged with the City of Iqaluit, the Government of Nunavut, and other officials on this very important issue. We believe that in Canada, everyone deserves the right to safe, clean drinking water, and this is something we are there to assist at every step of the way, however we can. We are there for Nunavut.
The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This government clearly does not want to help defend francophones in Canada's official language minority communities. After having postponed tabling the Modernized Official Languages Act, supposedly to consider the January ruling, well, today it's challenging that ruling in court. This morning, in a press conference, the minister refused to take any questions from journalists. Why? Is the Minister of Official Languages capable of defending the rights of francophones within her own government? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, our government is firmly committed to protecting and promoting both official languages, particularly in official language minority communities. You know, Mr. Speaker, that we tabled Bill C-13 that would modernize the Official Languages Act. We were aware of the Federal Court of Appeals ruling, and we will take the time necessary to review and consider it.
The Honourable Member for Bay of Quinte.
Mr. Speaker, the wine and cider industries in Canada are in trouble. If the plan for the federal government to put a cork in the excise sales tax for those wineries goes through on January 1st, up to 50% of those wineries could close. In the Bay of Quinte riding in Prince Edward County, we have 40 wineries and 5 cider companies. And in Canada, those industries generate $11.5 billion worth of income, 4 million tourists a year, and over 50,000 jobs. Will the government commit to fixing the excise tax exemption for wine and cider production, or it just will simply pour that industry down the drain?
Good question.
Yeah. The Honourable Minister of Tourism.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for his question. The tourism sector is critical to this country. The Canadian economy will not fully recover until the tourism sector does. I understand the importance of the wine economy to the tourism economy. And let me just say, Mr. Speaker, I've had the pleasure and the opportunity to attend dozens of pre-budget consultations. And the good news is, Mr. Speaker, we will have an announcement of the budget in the coming days. And I can tell you that if the Conservatives want to support Canadians, they should support and vote for C8 today or at latest tomorrow.
The honourable member for Pontiac.
As part of its commitment to a high standard of ethics and accountability, the government absolutely needs to protect whistleblowers. These are the ones that expose cases of serious wrongdoing. Can the President of the Treasury Board update this House on what she's doing to safeguard whistleblowers?
President of the Treasury Board.
I want to thank my honourable colleague from Pontiac and hardworking colleague for her question. Those who disclose serious wrongdoing must be protected. Canadian law provides a secure and confidential process for disclosing serious wrongdoing in the federal government and protection from acts of reprisal. Our government has strengthened these processes by improving training, transparency, and monitoring. We're going to continue improving the whistleblower protections and supports, including exploring possible amendments to the Public Servants Disclosure Protection Act. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Cowichan-Malahat-Langford.
Mr. Speaker, nearly 2 years ago, this government signed an agreement with the Pacheedaht First Nation in my riding. They committed to build and co-manage a $22 million Coast Guard facility on their territory near Port Renfrew. Chief Jeff Jones is rightly concerned because the federal government has provided no funding and discussions have stopped. Following last year's devastating container spill, coastal protection is needed now more than ever. Why has the government delivered zero funding and stopped talking with the Pacheedaht?
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thanks for that question. I would like to remind the member that after 10 years of very little investment in the Canadian Coast Guard, it is our government that has renewed the fleet. We are building 31 new large vessels. The Coast Guard is working with many coastal communities to develop hand in hand with communities, guardianship programs, so those communities can be eyes and ears on the ground and help with the important spill response and accident responses that the Coast Guard is responsible for. We appreciate the community's help with that, and the Coast Guard's 60th anniversary this year. Let's celebrate that too.
Good job.
The honourable member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Tomorrow, we're expecting the government to release its plan for emissions reductions. And without seeing it, unfortunately, we know that we'll fail to meet the urgency of the climate emergency, because it's clear on the science that net zero by 2050 is the wrong target. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change made it clear that the only way to hold to 1.5 degrees Celsius, which we agreed to do in the Paris Agreement, which is we hope, a livable level of climate disruption, is rapid, deep cuts by 2030, which Canada currently does not have. Will the government tell us when they will update the target to meet the demands that we agreed to at COP26 in Glasgow?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thanks to the honourable member for the question. And I would say to this House that through the efforts of millions of Canadians from coast to coast, Canada has successfully flattened its emissions curve. But as we are seeing from the immediate devastating impacts of a changing climate, I would agree with the honourable member. We need to do more on a faster timeline, and that's why our government committed to table the 2030 emissions reduction plan at the end of March 2022, informed by consultations on key emissions reduction members, Mr. Speaker, and the honourable member will know that the end of March is coming soon.
And that does it for question period today. I do want to remind folks when talking about other ministers or members of the House of Commons that we don't use their first or last names in it as well. Appel au règlement, l'honorable député de Mégan.
The honourable member for Mégantic-Lérable. Mr. Speaker, further to the answer from the Minister of Health today, Mr. Speaker, I'm sure that if you ask, you will find that there is unanimous consent to allow the Minister of Health to immediately table all the documentation, scientific documentation, recommending mandatory vaccination, as he promised to do last week. If anyone is against this motion, please say nay. There is no unanimous consent.
From the Opposition House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm rising to add to my point of order last week concerning the coalition agreement between the Liberal and New Democratic parties. On Thursday, I had asked whether the chair would be able to indicate whether it would be helpful in approaching a ruling to know whether there are any signed versions of the agreement or additional side deals. In this morning's edition of the Hill Times, it was reported that this backroom coalition deal is, despite public appearances otherwise, a signed agreement. Allow me to offer you a selection of 3 quotations from the newspaper. One, quote, "The Liberals and the NDP stunned Canadians across the country last Tuesday by announcing they signed a confidence and supply agreement which will allow the Liberals to govern until 2025, end quote. Number 2, the quote, "Prime Minister's decision to sign this agreement with the NDP came as a total surprise to caucus members," end quote. 3, quote, "The Liberal caucus meeting lasted about 90 minutes, during which the Prime Minister informed MPs about his decision to sign the agreement," end quote. Earlier today, Mr. Speaker, CTV reported that the leader of the NDP, the now moderate wing of the Liberal Party, said he is confident that the Prime Minister will follow through on the deal because he, quote, "got it in writing," end quote. Mr. Speaker, the only thing worse than a backroom deal is a secret backroom deal. Last week, Mr. Speaker, I called upon the government to come clean with this House and with all Canadians by tabling the signed agreement and any other side deals. I renew that call here and now. Canadians need to know the full truth. The Liberal silence to date on my point of order, in fact, speaks volumes. I hope they're not just relying on friends in the wings to do their bidding. The government must come clean to the House and defend and explain this unprecedented arrangement. In closing, Mr. Speaker, I would ask for unanimous consent to table the Hill Times article published today entitled "No Difference Between the Liberals and the NDP After Confidence and Supply Agreement," say some Liberal MPs. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All those opposed to the honourable member moving the motion will please say nay. We don't have agreement to table that. I have a point of order from the member from New Westminster, Burnaby. Then I'll go to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And this is the danger for the Conservatives when they prolong what has been a frivolous point of order. The official opposition House Leader last week was telling the House that this was some kind of a coalition government that the NDP and Liberals had put into place. And today he has contradicted himself by stating, as you know, Mr. Speaker, that it is indeed a confidence and supply agreement, thus contradicting everything he said last week, saying it was a coalition government. So, Mr. Speaker, I think that we have basically come to the end of what has been a series of frivolous and vexatious points of order. It is very true that this is a confidence and supply agreement, Mr. Speaker. It is very true that this is a practice that we have seen, of course, in numerous Canadian provinces and in other countries like the United Kingdom, Australia, and New Zealand. At no point with confidence and supply agreements has there ever been the kind of attempt to put a frivolous point of order in place as the official opposition House Leader has attempted to do. I was thinking, Mr. Speaker, what he was actually doing was rising to thank the NDP for getting dental care for 30,000 people in Barrie Innisfil, for getting a Canada Pharmacare Act for people in Barrie.
We're getting far into debate on this one. I do want to render a decision as soon as I can on this. So this is a continue. The honourable member, or the honourable opposition House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'll see it, believe it when I see it. But first, just for your reference, Mr. Speaker, in the first paragraph, I did refer to the coalition agreement between the Liberal and New Democratic parties. I have not changed the thing. Thank you.
And I just want to make the House aware that we will try to render a decision tomorrow if we possibly can. The honourable member for Dufferin-Caledon on another point of order.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. During question period today, the member for Winnipeg South said that the parliamentary budget officer confirmed that 8 out of 10 Canadians are in fact better off as a result of Liberal carbon tax. I have here with me right now Appendix A to that report, pages 18 to 21, that show that that is not necessarily the conclusion of the PBO, and I'd like unanimous consent to table these documents.
All those opposed to the honourable member moving the motion to table the documents will please say nay. And we don't have agreement on that one. Another point of order. Are we good? All right. Daily routine of business, tabling of documents. That's mine first. Table my duty of delay upon the table pursuant to subsection 61(4) of the Canadian Human Rights Act, the report from the Canadian Human Rights Commission for the year of 2021. Conformément à l'article
pursuant to standing order.
En renvoyer en permanence au comité permanent de la justice.
To the Standing Committee on Justice and Human Rights.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to Standing Order 36, bracket 8A, I have the honour to table in both official languages the government's responses to 6 petitions. These returns will be tabled in an electronic format.
Good job, Kevin.
Introduction of government bills. Statement